This video is sponsored by Skillshare. The first 1,000 people who click the link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. As the story of Yakuza Like a Dragon kicked into full swing and the open world of Yokohama presented its relatively grey expanse to me, I did what I would have done in any other Yakuza game. Matching new protagonist Ichiban Kasuga's headstrong personality, I charged through the city's numerous back streets with reckless abandon looking for the action. And in a series of events that felt completely alien to me given how Team Dragon games have always exemplified the pneumatic drill-like strength of your character's fists, one of my earliest battles in the game saw me fighting some lowly drones that proceeded to pummel me into the ground. Waking up with half of what little money I had now gone, I realised that the numbers above their heads should have said it all. They were higher level than me. This was an area the game had decided I wasn't meant to be in. Like a Dragon was gating off vast swathes of its open world based on character level, on numbers. This is a system I usually hate in other open world RPGs, and it's one of many ways in which the rather seismic shift in the Yakuza framework, from brawler to full-on turn-based JRPG, makes itself apparent. I usually bounce off this kind of game pretty quickly for exactly these kinds of design decisions, alongside combat that relies on dice rolls as much as your own skill, the need to take time away from the main narrative and interesting side quests to grind the numbers governing it all. But here, I couldn't help but feel like this situation made total sense. See, the streets of Kamurocho are sleazy and alive with the possibility that trouble might be waiting around the next corner, but it's complemented by the fact that you've almost always been Kiryu Kazuma, the Dragon of Dojima. These are your streets. I, as a player, have seen this district evolve over the decades, spanning the Yakuza and Judgment timeline. I am intimately familiar with the way this works. Kiryu comes across punks, Kiryu smashes punks with bicycle, all is right with the world. On the other hand, Kasuga might be similar to Kiryu in some ways, namely his unwavering and eminently lovable sense of loyalty to those around him, as well as his similarly chiseled physique. But the context of his situation and the way he's forced to confront it is fairly different from the series' mainstay. It's not just Yokohama that's new to Kasuga. He's not just out of place, he's out of time. He's emerged from spending half his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit, ready to prostrate himself anew at the feet of the man who put him there as if nothing happened, only to find that the city that raised him, the people who took him in as a child, have all moved on, and what's more, he's about to fall foul of seemingly further betrayal at the hands of his most cherished father figure. Kasuga has just endured the most severe case of cultural and physical whiplash it's possible to experience. His world has been completely flipped upside down. He's in an area he's unfamiliar with, robbed of everything in a city whose vastness absolutely dwarfs Kamurocho, whose criminal hierarchies and customs are completely different, and he's kicking about town with a homeless drunk guy he doesn't know particularly well at this stage. Of course he's gonna get his arse handed to him, and with that, for the first time in a Yakuza game outside of a Mr. Shakedown style gimmick, the very streets of Yokohama feel legitimately mechanically dangerous in a way that other Yakuza settings simply don't. You have to actually watch yourself and strategically avoid brawls you're not ready for, because in this unfamiliar world, those goons you're used to making short work of suddenly have the potential to do some serious damage, at least initially. Those numbers above your enemies' heads aren't arbitrary, they represent the very real gulf between their knowledge of these streets versus your own. And this is the reason why I found it way harder to write about this game than I thought it would be. By all accounts, I shouldn't love this game as much as I do, and yet, building upon the developer's penchant for mechanical storytelling, as seen so prominently in Judgment, here we have just one component of Like a Dragon's densely layered JRPG framework already telling us so much about this character and the world he finds himself in. A kind of narrative and thematic reinforcement consistent with every change Like a Dragon brings to the Yakuza table. Contrary to what you might think given the game's origins as a literal April Fool's joke, far from being slapped on for a laugh, the JRPG systems here are intrinsic to what this game is about. Not just mechanical, but baked into the very story unfolding before you. To a certain extent, Like a Dragon is a JRPG about JRPGs. Indeed, the question of what would happen if you tried to apply the principles of the genre to the grim and complicated realities of real life is the thematic kernel internal here. I mean, it's certainly the main source of the game's perfectly executed comedy, as our main character, quick to remind us at every turn of how big a fan he is of the Dragon Quest series, relates every part of his crew's journey through the lens of the genre's tropes like grinding and leveling up. Our team of gallant warriors ready to take down a vile evil consists of the aforementioned homeless drunk dude, an over-the-hill former police officer, and a bar manager. Kasuga's hallucinations of the world and grand hilarious summon animations provide the payoff that you're not exactly raining down elemental hell upon ghoulish monsters. Rather, you're realizing that the weakness of some guy on the street amounts to drinking too much and getting smacked in the face with a bat. Who'da thunk it? But even beyond this comedic application, the affection Kasuga holds for these JRPGs of old, with their representations of heroism and stepping up against mighty foes, good triumphing over evil and all that, it all forms the critical component of his character, contextualizing his sense of duty and headstrong demeanour as that of the archetypical hero, standing up for what's right whatever the cost. It's what drives him, what allows him to rile up his friends to join him on his quest, to find out the reasons behind his apparent and sudden betrayal in a labyrinthine plot that goes all the way to the top. Said winding plot being one of the few aspects of Like a Dragon you could argue hasn't changed all that much. See, the games of Team Dragon often revolve around a single mystery or antagonist, but the common thread between them is that the issues facing these characters are often far more complicated than bringing down a single villain. In many cases, they're rooted in certain aspects of society that you get the feeling the writers aren't particularly fond of. You see this in 3 as Kiryu tries his best to bring up the kids in his care to be as close to objectively good as possible, to care for others and avoid making the mistakes Kiryu made in his past, all to enter a society that has already deemed them criminals and thugs purely based on the fact that they don't have parents. You find it in Judgment, with Yagami's struggle between a lawyer's job to win a case and a detective's job to find the truth, serving as a pointed critique of the Japanese legal system. This series might be over the top and wacky on its surface, but it always has something to say about the functions of the larger society. But where Like a Dragon sets itself apart from its predecessors, where its shift in genre allows the game to drill down more deeply on this kind of commentary, is that this isn't a game about taking on everyone with your lone fists. As the need to fight in a party exemplifies, this is a game about coming to terms with and embracing your own imperfections. That realization that you might not be able to solve all of these problems yourself. More broadly, it's about truly understanding who a person really is rather than defining them simply by their current circumstances. How those who hypocritically proclaim moral superiority over society's underclasses often contribute themselves to the corrupt systems that force people into those circumstances to begin with, as smug self-importance trumps any desire for actual change. It's what makes Kasuga's proclamations of the importance of heroism so interesting, because his ideas of that concept aren't actually rooted in the kind of good versus evil black and white morality the antagonists of this game so sanctimoniously preach. Instead, Kasuga's self-awareness of his own shortcomings speaks to the complexities lying within every human being. By allowing himself to really connect with those around him, over time he unravels the rich stories of these individuals, and as a consequence, you as a player discover their skills and attributes that complement Kasuga's strengths and fill in the blanks of his weaknesses in a very direct way through battle. And look, I personally am never going to be able to see the need to grind out levels as anything other than a frustrating pace killer narratively, but this is about as close as I've come to viewing its potential as a kind of relationship building exercise. The process of discovering how these disparate personalities and skill sets can click with one another is so central to the game's themes and combat that the rare occasion you're forced to battle with even one less party member feels like being told to juggle with both hands behind your back. And instead of becoming some divisive asshole hellbent on actually helping no one, he comes to the conclusion that no matter who a person is or where they are in life, there is no exception in which they shouldn't be treated with extreme compassion and forgiveness. It's Kasuga's dedication to this view that remains so charmingly straightforward. It places him and his crew as the underdogs you truly root for. But all of this also frames Kasuga and crew's biggest enemy as one of alarming enormity. There's a clear enough path to towards defeating the one big bad guy or solving the one mystery? How the hell do you combat the intricate web of societal systems comprising the delicate interplay of parliaments, criminal factions, and public perception designed to keep people in their place? Kasuga's positivity is abundant, but can it secure him and his homeless pal a job when to do so requires a fixed address? Will it convince the pearl-clutching weirdos that sometimes the grey area of the law is where people need to exist when society has thrown them to the wayside? Will it put food in kids' mouths when they end up the true victims of such short-sighted and self-important moralising? You know, it's funny and heartwarming to see these characters embrace Kasuga's view of the world, but perhaps the reason they tag along with him is because, well, what have they got left to lose? You could argue that in true JRPG fashion, all of this is the god that must be killed here. It's this struggle, this dissonance between the plainness of how Kasuga believes the world should work and the unfathomable bureaucracy of reality that leads to moments of such gut-wrenching tension as the enemies Kasuga goes up against seem too amorphous, too entrenched in a corrupt system to combat and change. But subsequently, it leads to moments of true triumph, when his foolhardiness refuses to let him back down in the face of all of that. That even if he falls against these foes, he'll have done so with the unwavering belief in the idea that in a world so dominated by cruel, selfish indifference masquerading as concern, just being good, forgiving, and sticking by those close to him, refusing to boil a person's entire being down to just one fleeting aspect of their life, can be enough to overcome the completely wild hurdles in his way. And in an age where people are so depressingly quick and delighted to see the absolute worst in each other, truly Kasuga is the hero we all need right now. You know, I don't think that Like a Dragon is somehow a perfect video game. It certainly falls prey to some of the more plodding frustrations I find so anticlimactic in more traditional JRPGs, where massive action set pieces devolve into absurd scenarios with characters standing around aimlessly waiting to be hit, especially when the combat in prior titles was so immediate and ferocious. But I ask, what series is more equipped to lean into that kind of absurdity than Yakuza? Its systems, however frustrating they may be at times, represent the closest marriage between mechanics and themes the Yakuza series has seen up to this point. This approach, this complete vision realised by the developers, yields such pulse-pounding, hilarious, tense and heartwarming character moments across its many, many hours of playtime that makes me think, despite my negative biases towards this genre, that there really was no other way to tell this incredible story. And speaking of telling things, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with Skillshare's inspiring online classes on topics including illustration, photography, video design, and more. Maybe you've considered creating your own podcast as a creative outlet. It might sound intimidating, but with John Lagomarsino's course, How to Make a Podcast, you'll get a detailed breakdown on the gear required, planning, recording, and launching your podcast that will help make the process as stress-free as possible. What's more, Skillshare offers classes designed for real life and all the circumstances that come with it. These lessons can help you to stay inspired, express yourself, and introduce you to a community of millions, all for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. And because Skillshare is sponsoring this video, the first 1,000 people who click my link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium, so there's no risk to checking it out for yourself, and you'll really be helping the channel in the process. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and I hope you all enjoyed this piece on Yakuza Like a Dragon. If you liked the video, help me out by hitting the corresponding button and subscribing, as well as checking out my podcast in the description below. I'd also like to thank my patrons here. These videos simply would not exist without your continued support. If you've enjoyed any of the videos I've put out and want to help the channel continue so I can keep making more, you can directly help out as well as get things like early access to ad-free video uploads by heading to patreon.com/writingongames and pledging only what you feel comfortable with. I am forever thankful for your support in whatever form it takes. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Nicholas Villeneuve, Captain Knusplich, Leah Chinello, Henry Mielek, Bryce Snyder, Lucas, David Björk, Winter, Timothy Jones, Hebe Amori, The Nameless Guy, Tommy Carver Chaplin, Dr. Motorcycle, Shardfire, Rob, Anna Pimentel, Jesse Ryan, Spike Jones, Dallas Keane, Charlie Kimball, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.